What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
We have a question that's kind of, it is definitely related to what we're going to talk about today. And that is, how do you measure culture in your organization or in an organization? How do you measure culture?
If you measure culture, do you in fact measure culture?
Yeah, exactly. And make sure that your chat box is pointed to everyone, not just to panelists. Fritz said, I know we're going to have fun today. Yeah, because Sanjay's not here. So
we better have fun. Darn it. Darn it.
Yeah, really.
That's required. Or we're going to ask you to leave if you're not having fun.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting for seats to come in, I've got to share my what I shared with you, Jeff. I had a bit of a Monday morning this morning. In fact, maybe a few people on this call who subscribe to my newsletter. I know there are. And you may have noticed that you got 2 editions today. For whatever reason, my email software program decided in its wisdom, this is all automated, decided rather than sending out today's edition, it sent out an edition for next week that was not finished, that was not edited, and it sent it out instead first, and then sent out today's proper one that was supposed to go out.
Oh,
so,
gosh.
Yes.
That's all right. It shows that you're human. It's not AI doing this, right? That's how you can introduce it next week, just to prove that this is not AI.
Yes.
I'm trying to help you here, Mike.
No. I've already written next week's based on this, so it's all about celebrating awkwardness.
Excellent.
Yes.
And I want to be an unabashed self-promoter.
Thank you, Peggy.
I want to be an unabashed self-promoter.
Yes.
My newest book is printed and going to be available. It's called The Lemonade Stand.
Does it come with the clip like that?
Yeah, exactly.
We have to 3-hole punch it and put it in a...
But it's The Lemonade Stand, Customer Experience Lessons from a 9-year-old Entrepreneur.
Oh.
It's a business parable. So I had a lot of fun writing it. And like I say, it's shipping tomorrow. So I'm very excited.
Congratulations. And everybody, I had the honor of pre-reading Jeff's book, and I have to say, it is brilliant. It's great. It's great.
Thanks so much.
Great messages. It's a fun read. It's a very quick read.
Yeah. And I'll tell you more in the next few weeks on how you can get it. So, excellent. Michael, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
I will. Thank you, Jeff. My name is, and by the way, it is August 6th, 2025, just for the record.
Why do we do that, by the way? Why do we do that?
Do what? Why do we do this? I think so we know when we're organizing the videos, it's like a timestamp, Jeff. It's like a low-tech timestamp. My name is Michael Kerr. Welcome, everybody, and coming to you from my usual locale, Canmore, Alberta, in the spectacular Canadian Rockies. I speak on inspiring workplace cultures. One little announcement I will make is my book, that came out in 2020, The Jerk-Free Workplace, How You Can Take the Lead to Create a Happier, More Inspiring Workplace, all about frontline leadership and not being a jerk. I have turned it into an audiobook narrated by moi. So please check that out if you are so desirous of doing that. And today, Jeff, because I know you're going to ask, 2 theme days today. It is Fresh Breath Day. I think I'm good. Are you good, Jeff?
No. Excuse me for a couple minutes.
So it's Fresh Breath Day and Root Beer Float Day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Does that bring back childhood memories? Jeff, please introduce yourself.
My name is Jeff Tobe, and I am a professional speaker as well, coming to you from beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I speak about lemonade. Oh, no, I don't. I speak about customer experience, how to make the leap from customer service to customer experience. And I am excited to be here with just you, Michael, while the other 2 are actually working.
What's up with that?
Yeah, so what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to talk about this whole, and we've touched on this in the past, but we're going to do a deep dive on how do you measure workplace culture? Because it seems like this nebulous, amorphous thing. I think a lot of us have trouble even defining what workplace culture is. So how the heck do we measure it? And why should we measure it? And, right? If we're, I mean, this is what we talk about at every other Wednesday, the importance of workplace culture, about being intentional about workplace culture. So obviously, and I assume our faithful crowd here joining us are convinced that workplace culture matters a lot, Absolutely. That it is important, that it's a key driver of success, that it's our number one competitive advantage. So if it is all those things, then maybe it's important to measure it.
Yeah. You used to speak solely, I don't think I'm putting any ideas in your head about humor in the workplace. And I speak about customer experience, and they're both kind of nebulous. Like, how do we measure those things, right? And I think that for anything, you can set up metrics based on certain criteria, and that's where we're going today. So, yeah. And I'll start because we're talking about customer experience. That was the segue kind of into this.
Great, nicely done. You get 100 segue points for
Thank you. I want people to put in the chat box what NPS is. How many of you know what NPS is? Does anybody know what NPS is?
NPS? N as in nurse?
As in nurse, but that's not the first word. So, no. Yes. N as in Norman, P as in Peter. There we go. Peggy wins. I don't know what you win, Peggy, but thank you. It's called Net Promoter Score.
500 points to Peggy.
Yeah. Are you familiar with NPS, Michael?
I am.
Yeah, because NPS, basically everyone says, I don't know. A lot of people say, I don't know what it is. And yet you've done it. It's where an organization, a company, after you purchase something, or they say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being absolutely not, 10 being absolutely, would you recommend us to your family and friends? That's basically the basis of an NPS score. And I think one way to measure culture is to do that internally. We do engagement surveys. I get that. And that's a whole other way of measuring culture. But just doing a simple NPS questionnaire, and I say there are 1 to 3 questions you can ask. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being absolutely not, 10 being absolutely, would you recommend ABC company to your friends and family to work? Would you, if you're below a 9, what would make you a 10 kind of thing? There are questions you can ask, but I think it's a great way to kind of survey your people. And it also sends out the message that you care, about culture.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing about all these things, right? Is there's always a message behind the actual thing that we do, right? So you send a survey, there's also the message behind the survey. There's the message behind the behaviors that we often do. And I love that question, Jeff. That's one of my kind of questions that I challenge people with in my audiences is just that. Would your best friend, would you recommend your workplace to your best friend in the world or a family member as an awesome place to work? In other words, are you an enthusiastic, positive ambassador for your workplace, right? So it's almost measuring the level of ambassadorship you have.
Yeah. And a lot of companies don't do it anonymously. And so it gives them even more metrics based on, longevity of service to the company. So we're seeing that new people say they wouldn't recommend it, whereas our veterans would, or the other way around. So there's a lot of data that you can gather from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super important.
Yeah. What's another one?
Well, why don't you were starting off talking about customer experience. So what about how our culture is reflected through our customer engagement? How engaged they are? We talk about employee turnover as an obvious measurement of how our culture might be doing. If turnover rates are really high, if absenteeism rates are really high, you probably have a culture problem in your organization. And that's a really obvious key indicator. But what about customer turnover rates? What about customer engagement rates? What about customer satisfaction scores? Those obviously have to be key things we measure.
I am anti-customer satisfaction scores and surveys. And I'll tell you why. I don't want a satisfied customer. I want an engaged, loud customer. And so I stopped telling clients to do satisfaction scores. But you're absolutely right. There are ways that we should be, NPS is another way, externally, but there are lots of ways that we should be, reaching out for our customer I was just going to say satisfaction for what our customer thinks about us. What went through my mind is that's internal or external. We have a lot of people that don't have external customers.
Sure.
Right. And so it's also internal as well. How do we survey? Have we ever surveyed our internal customer who we serve every single day? Internal.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a great question. And I totally agree. The whole satisfaction thing, right? Like if you're going for just, good customer service or satisfied customers, well, guess what? You're only meeting your customer's expectation, and that's going to do nothing to generate word of mouth business, enthusiastic, truly loyal customers, right? And there's a difference between long-term customers versus truly loyal customers.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something we have to measure in terms of, not easy to measure all the time, but I think it's something we do have to figure out different ways of measuring, even if it's just informally through comments and through the nature of your relationships that you've built with your customers. Let me ask you this, Jeff, as a customer experience expert guy, do you think it's possible that, because we often talk about how culture flows outwards, and if you've got a great culture, it is going to support great customer service and great customer experience. However, do you think sometimes there are cases where you could have phenomenally good customer service, but the culture kind of behind the scenes is just awful? Like people are
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Because, you set up customer experience, customer service policies. And if people are following them to, it could be a great customer experience. I'll give you an example. Our largest healthcare system in the Pittsburgh area is called UPMC. It used to be called University of Pittsburgh Medical something. and now they bought every other hospital, and they're everywhere in Pennsylvania. I like them. As a patient, I mostly, not 100%, but I get amazing patient experience. I give them amazing patient experience scores. I have a very close friend whose son is a doctor within the system, was a doctor until last week. And he was telling me horror stories about working for UPMC. And he has since, just this week, left UPMC after, I think, 11 or 12 years of being with them. I have a GP, a general practitioner, who got bought out. His practice got bought out by UPMC and has disappeared. Got a message. I got a letter 2 weeks ago that he's no longer with the practice. He's been there 30-something years. He's been my doctor. I don't know where he went. So yes, the answer is absolutely yes. Would you agree? Have you had that experience?
Yeah, for sure. And actually, you talking about that reminds me of how often I've come across this, where, you see, and sometimes they're published in newspapers, even in magazine articles on the web, where they announce the best places to work, right? These are the top 100 companies to work for, the top 20 companies to work for. But then you actually talk to people who work in those companies, and sometimes it's like, wow, did they get that wrong? Because this is a dysfunctional, toxic, soul-sucking workplace culture. So I think what the challenge is, they're not measuring the right things sometimes in those lists, in those surveys. They're looking at the list of benefits, the packages, the perks that go along with the job, all these things that maybe are easier to measure, the tangible things, but they're not getting to the heart of what it's really like to work there. And so there's this disconnected reality, right? Where people are going, no, we are not a great place to work. It sucks here.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of two criteria that I challenge my clients with. One, whether you make it or not, you should be striving to hit that list. I know that it's not always right, but if you just work towards hitting the list, there may not even be a list in your town or your area. And two, so the best place to work and the best place to do business. That's the two things you want. That's it. That's what's going to make you successful in the customer experience.
Totally.
Yeah. Carol said she hated those 100 best surveys.
it's a lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Totally agree. All right. What else do you have, Jeff? What other ways can we measure culture?
So I was reading about this, and they mentioned gossip levels.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah. I made a note. This one is not mine, but they said when and if there's negative gossip about any colleagues or the company, it's always an indication of a broken culture, right? how many times have we gossiped about people? Probably ourselves, Michael. I won't put you on the spot, but I've done it in organizations, and then caught myself. It just shows that employees don't feel safe. They don't feel comfortable. It goes back to creating psychological safety zones.
Right. And I suspect that there is a direct correlation between the level of open and honest communication, especially coming from on high, from senior managers, and the amount of gossip going on. And when there isn't that level of open and honest communication, people make things up. People make stuff up when there's a communication vacuum. So gossip increases, rumors increase, and it becomes incredibly toxic. It shows up in my surveys too. And what creates kind of a jerk-like workplaces when there's high levels of toxic gossip going on.
Somebody should write a book about that.
Somebody should.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, we've got everybody's in now, so I'm going to ask the original question in the chat box. Put what else? How else? Maybe you don't do it, but how else could one measure culture?
Well, so Jeff, I'm going to flip on as answers hopefully come into the chat box. I'm going to flip that one around then and suggest that a green flag, as opposed to a red flag, a green flag for a great inspiring culture is the level of open communication, how comfortable, especially frontline employees, new employees feel speaking up, how comfortable they feel asking challenging questions, suggesting outrageous ideas, pointing out safety issues, pointing out customer service issues, pointing out productivity issues. Just how comfortable are they to speak up in a meeting, in a town hall, in a forum? How comfortable do they feel going to their boss and having an open and honest communication?
Yeah. So in the engagement survey that one of my clients did, 8,000 employees, they didn't get 8,000 replies, but they did pretty well. And that was one of the number one things that people don't feel comfortable speaking up.
Yeah.
I think that's incredible. That is culture, right?
Yeah.
And now they're offering all kinds of courses in safety zone, in psychological safety, because they need their people to feel comfortable. Otherwise, it leads into a whole other measurement, and that's innovation. There can't be any innovation in an organization if people aren't speaking up and suggesting ideas.
Yeah, totally. And I see my memory is going, but I think it was just Sanjay and I alone on an Every Other Wednesday several months ago, where we broke down the topic of psychological safety.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, into 4.
I have to watch those videos.
You watched it? How was it? Did you enjoy it?
I post them online. Sanjay was great.
Sanjay was like, what? Oh, okay, yeah, good. I'm so glad he was great. Anyways, we broke down this bigger concept of psychological safety into 4 different subcategories, which I think can really help when it comes to measuring your workplace culture. And the one that most people say is the most lacking in their workplace is the challenger safety, where you feel you can speak up to your boss suggests an idea. How comfortable are you to challenge your boss on that idea and say, I don't think that's a very good idea.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know why I just thought of this, but actually this morning, I actually challenged a client on an idea they had. Stupid thing. I haven't even been hired by them yet. I should say. But I told them basically they were wrong. So
excellent.
I may not get that engagement, but that's okay.
You see, if they're a smart client, they would be opening to listening to you, and probably like you should get it. You should get the work because you were honest with
honest. That's right. Let's go back to the chat. Stephen Rayfield said, cultural alignment audits. Never heard of that term. Compares stated company values with actual behaviors and decision-making patterns. I love that. Yeah.
How in sync are you between your words and your behaviors?
Right. Or your written policies, right? Yeah. Your company values. You want to go for one of these?
Sure. Rob talking about in terms of open communication, a CEO made it a point to attend every orientation. He shared 3 simple expectations, which are down below. Learn something new every day. I love that. Reading Carol's comment. Number 2, teach us something new every day. And number 3, have fun, because, I think I like this CEO. Have fun because life is too short not to. Thank you, Rob. Those are great questions.
So, right from onboarding, we've said this before, we have to instill what our company culture is. And the CEO doing that sends a huge message, not just what he says.
Yeah.
Fritz said I was looking at data for my organization. I have a couple of teams where 85 to 90% of them do not feel comfortable speaking up. That's what this company found as well, Fritz.
Yeah.
I know now which leaders need support with our vision and values around contribution. Excellent. So there's some great data as well. So let me ask you a question, Mike, changing the topic a little bit. I don't know if you're just doing some work there and ignoring them.
I'm actually writing down Rob's questions so that I can squirrel them away because I love that.
Excellent. Because you're an expert in this, can you measure workplace enthusiasm?
Well, I think anecdotally, you certainly get a sense of it, right? I mean, you can tell just by the amount of laughter and everything. I mean, this may sound really trite and trivial, but everything from body language and the amount of laughter and how openly people just feel comfortable having fun. So there are those kind of maybe softer measurement things. But again, I think if you ask the right kind of questions in an employee engagement survey, if you have your pulse on things and really it's about that, right? Like I'm not always a big fan of the formal big surveys, right? I think sometimes companies use those as an excuse to make it look like they did something. It's really important to be more to create more opportunities for a real two-way conversation and to just have your pulse on that. But I think it goes back to things like enthusiasm goes back to, hey, are you an ambassador for our company? Are you recommending us to your family and friends? How excited do you feel about work on a Monday morning? There was just a fascinating article, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I stumbled upon talking, and they had a term for it. I forget the term. It was a very funny term, but it was about essentially the Sunday evening dreads when you think about going back to work, right? You're calling into bed on that Sunday evening and you're thinking about going back to work. What is your level of enthusiasm, or what is your level of dread on that Sunday evening when you think about going back into work? A buddy of mine calls it the Monday morning driveway test. How excited are you to leave your driveway on a Monday morning to go to your job?
Well, I'm lucky I don't have a driveway.
I think it's important to figure out just how enthusiastic people are, how engaged they are. But if people aren't enthusiastic to be there, and we've talked about this all the time, if they aren't engaged, why on earth would they be loyal to you? Why on earth would they feel they have to stick around? Because they don't feel like they have a vested interest in your future. So why would they suggest ideas? Why would they want to speak up when they see an issue? It's one of the ways that employees fall into that apathy trap, right? When we don't feel enthusiastic, we're just like, I'm doing my job, give me my paycheck, I'm going home.
Yeah. You said a word that really sparked something in my mind. When I work with organizations long-term, and again, it's customer experience, but it's absolutely applicable to what we're talking about. And that is establish an ambassador program, a formal ambassador program. I do that with organizations all the time. 6, depending on the size of the organization, but just 5 to 8 frontline people who are enthusiastic, who love the company, who love being there. And you put them together, and it's a monthly meeting where they can suggest ideas because they are ambassadors. How can we both, how do we affect the external customer, and how do we affect the internal customer? How do we make the experience better? And you call them ambassadors, and they actually, at the end of a year, they graduate, and the ambassadors, some kind of a celebration, and you bring in 8 more frontline people, but the ambassadors now are like mentors to those frontline people.
Oh, lovely.
And I love doing that because it gets people engaged. It's like you recognize me. I had an organization where we were just starting with the ambassadors, and the young girl literally broke out in tears when she was introducing herself and said, I can't believe I was asked to do this. I didn't even think the CEO knew who I was. Yeah. And they're invited, by the way, I forgot that part, a formal letter or email from the CEO, not from anybody else. We recognize your contribution to the organization. We want you to be an ambassador.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's awesome. And I love, yeah, I agree. I love the word ambassador, right?
Yeah.
It's a nice framing of these things. And the nice thing about that, right, is that we know enthusiasm is highly contagious. So you get a group of enthusiastic people together, and that energy is going to feed off each other, but hopefully then it's going to spread beyond that small team of ambassadors.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right, so Carol, when our firm, it just moved on me. So when our firm merged with another firm, it was culture shock. There's a word we need to explore for a whole other program, right? Our firm had fun. In addition, getting our work done. We began physically sharing an office. It was like night and day. It took a while to merge. So there's another challenge I know, in culture, because when we're merging two cultures together, it's kind of like who wins, right? Head to head, who wins?
Right. And when it comes to measuring things, read Carol's last line, right? Because that's so important. You could feel it. You could just feel it, right?
Yeah.
You can feel it when, and I hear from clients all the time, we've lost our, they use the word mojo. We've lost our mojo. We just don't, like, there's this, we don't have our groove on the way we used to, right? You just feel it.
Yeah. Rob said something you said reminded him. You want to look at that?
Yes, and I just read that book. I've referenced the book here and now over the years, and I just reread it a couple of weeks ago, Rob. So I love that you mentioned it. It's a fascinating book. But just talking about this book, Checklist Manifesto, I encourage people to check it out. Research shows that patients are more likely to sue doctors they perceive of having a poor bedside manner, even when the actual medical care provided was competent.
Yeah.
And there's a Press Ganey study of something like 130,000 patients in terms of how satisfied they were with their outcomes. And the top, I think, 14 of their satisfaction measures had nothing to do with the actual treatment they got or with the skill of the surgeon or doctor or nurse. It was all about, to Rob's point, bedside manner, communication, service they were getting. It was all this stuff that's not so easy to measure, but the stuff that actually matters.
In that same Press Ganey, I have read that survey because I have a niche with small rural hospitals. And they actually went deeper than just bedside manner. It was the fact that the doctors sat down to talk to them.
Yeah.
Now, how simple is that, right? But instead of them having to look up at this godlike figure they think they are, they just sat beside them, literally a bedside manner. I thought that was a great point, and I think we can take that away for any industry. It is that face to face, if you can do it, whatever that means in your business.
Totally. And small things that show up in medical care too. I wrote about this somewhere just a while ago, but just even when doctors, when medical staff put their name and their job on their surgical cap, it just relaxes patients that much more. It makes them more comfortable.
Yeah, and even have fun with it.
Yeah,
the job they write doesn't have to be the job that they actually do. Heart surgeon. Instead, it can be, keep your ticker ticking or something.
Oh, I thought you were gonna. Yeah, I was getting a little worried there because I had visions of just about to be going under for open heart surgery, and the head surgeon putting,
Do I have Sanjay written on the front of me? No, I wouldn't go there. So.
No.
Yeah, and Stephen's asking, does anyone have formal customer ambassadors? I know Walmart does, but maybe you can explain the term, Stephen, for us. Another one that I wanted, we've kind of skirted around are retention rates, right? Are people leaving? That'll tell you a lot about your culture and great measurement. How do we, I always say, how do we attain and retain great talent? Two very different things, right? We focus a lot, or a lot of companies focus on attaining great talent, but then they forget we got to keep them. And so, how do we retain them? And I think that's huge.
And there's studies that show that depending on how you attain new employees, if you do a really good job at that, it will improve your retention scores. You will retain if you attain in a more effective way.
Yeah, and we've had plenty of shows where we talk about recognition and all of those things, incentives, things that you can do. But it's beyond that. I think we've also talked about that sense of belonging. So which is key.
Well, and I think one of the things we have to be aware of in terms of retention is and turnover rates is understanding that there is such a thing as bad turnover rates versus not so bad reasons for people leaving. If your employees are leaving because they legitimately have this incredible career opportunity and that you cannot provide in your organization, and it is their time to move on, or they're leaving to go back to school or whatever, those are legitimate reasons, right? We're going to lose employees, and we want to encourage them and help them and support them. But if we are losing employees because of a bad boss, because of our culture, because of a toxic work environment, because of jerky coworkers, that's what we want to know. And I'm not a big fan of exit interviews. I've written articles about this because, of course, people lie on them. They're not always open and honest about it. And it's too late. They've left. They've left the building. Elvis has left the building. So what I think is far more important is to have those stay interviews that we've talked about, right? Maybe once a year where you sit down with each member of your team and talk about their long-term career goals. How enthusiastic are they feeling to still be part of your team? And ask those questions and have a really good, open, honest conversation about how they're feeling.
Yeah. Stephen defined what he was talking about with customer ambassadors. And I don't call it that. Actually, when I work with organizations, we set up what's called a customer advisory board. And this is made up of not their best, it's made up of a small group of their best customers. And that doesn't mean the ones that spend the most money with them. It doesn't mean they define best any way they want. It could be just that they're very loyal. They wouldn't do business with anybody else.
Right.
And they meet once a quarter. This is my framework. They meet once a quarter. They're invited out to dinner with the CEO, and they're invited to bring their significant other. And the reason we do that twofold. One, the significant other isn't going, oh, another meeting that you're going to, right? They actually go to nice places for dinner. And the second thing is often the significant other works in a whole other industry, but they can bring ideas. So this is very selfish. And it's basically the first 20 minutes are asking, it's not a focus group. It's asking them input on a specific thing. Here's our new website. What are your thoughts?
Okay.
Here's what we're looking at doing in manufacturing. What do you think? And like I said, that those people who are from outside the industry or that specific focus say, we did something similar in our business, and they get ideas that way. And then the rest of the evening is really just for fun, networking. And back to Stephen's point, they are ambassadors because you're creating a barrier to entry. That's what I like to call it. I don't remember where I heard that terminology. It's not mine. But there's no other competitor who's going to be able to enter, those people's business because you're treating them so royally. So, yeah. So thank you for that.
Yeah. So, Jeff, you twigged me onto something there too that we haven't talked about in terms of a culture measure, and that is the rate of innovation going on in your culture.
Yeah.
How much are you creating new things, creating new products, creating new ideas, open to new ideas, and actually leading change and keeping up with the change that's happening in the world?
Yeah. Well, this is my other pet is creativity and innovation.
Yeah.
And thus coloring outside the lines. But there's a huge difference. A lot of companies, I think, solicit creativity, come up with new ideas, give suggestions. That's creativity. And everybody is creative. I don't care if you say you are or not.
Right.
You can improve, but I think as human beings, we can create. Innovation is the successful implementation of those ideas.
Right.
And define successful, it doesn't have to be we made X amount of money, but we successfully implement it. It's risk. It's taking the risk of implementing, great ideas. And that's where a lot of companies fall short.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're focusing on customer experience. I didn't mean to come into this doing that and creativity, but yeah, I think,
well, it's important, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately that's why almost every organization or business exists, is to serve somebody. So that's the ultimate measure of success. So
yeah, exactly. And I think we've talked about, I wish Richard was here for this. We talked about employee engagement and measuring employee engagement, but there are those non-tangibles that I think can be measured as well.
Yeah.
Are you providing opportunities for your employees to do service work outside of the job? Just volunteer work in the community. And if you're not getting any volunteers, something is wrong with your culture, right? So we should do a whole list, like, you're a redneck when.
Yes.
Your culture's broken when.
You're a dysfunctional culture when.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and that's another good measure, right? How enthusiastically do employees put up their hands for things, volunteer for things, say, yeah, I'm on board with, I would love to do this.
How often do they refer a friend when there's a job open?
Yeah.
Or a family member, right?
Yeah.
Again, another great sign. And
and here's the thing, impossible to measure this, of course, but one of the things we have to keep in mind, in the back of our minds as leaders especially, is what's one of the number one things employees talk about, we all talk about when we're at a party, when we get together with friends we haven't seen in a while. What's one of the first questions they ask? Hey, how's work going?
Right.
And your employees have an answer to that question that is very, very honest and very telling of what your real culture is.
Yeah. And it's funny because last night I asked somebody that exact question and I was shocked at the negative reply. He's always so enthusiastic. And it was what Carol was talking about. Since the last time I talked to you, we got bought. And now everybody's scared because we got to merge cultures and we're not sure who's going to be around after that, after the merger. It's a very scary thing.
Well, and on that note, another conversation to think about, because these conversations happen all the time. We've referenced the veteran employees, the long-term employees versus the new employees. What happens in most organizations? The end of the first week, those new employees maybe go for coffee, they go for a beer with some of the veterans, and those grizzled veterans pull out their pipes and they start talking about what they've seen around here. I've seen stuff, kid. And they start talking about the workplace culture from their perspective. So what are your veterans saying to the new kids on the block? Because that's something that can be a huge indicator of what your real culture is all about.
So it brings me to another passion, and that is, do you have a formal mentorship program, where these veterans are mentoring these young people? And you have to be careful because you got to vet who the mentors are. If they're the Downer Debbie Downers, you probably don't want her mentoring,
No.
Right. So, but I think that that's another important thing, is that to establish a formal mentorship program and see how enthusiastic people are about mentoring.
Wow.
I think that most organizations are surprised. I think they think that their veterans are just riding it out until they can retire. But there's this formal thing called knowledge management, knowledge transfer. And, is it leaving with our more experienced employees?
Right.
So that mentorship allows them to pass on their knowledge, whether it's technical mentorship, in other words, I know your job and I can help you more, or it's career mentorship. Here's the mistakes I made, and that's what you want to do. Let's design a career path together.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What else?
What else do we have? What about, well, this is a big one for me always, is because so many, I think it's one of the number one complaints I hear when I get hired. In fact, they almost always bring it up, is, I'm so frustrated because we've got too many people working in isolated silos, not cooperating with other teams, other departments, hoarding information, not being true team players, not being two team players across the entire organization, especially, right? They might be a team player within their own little team, but how open are they? How much are they collaborating with other departments and teams? So for me, that's a big indicator. And I think if you have a really healthy, positive workplace culture, then you see a lot of cross-departmental, cross-team collaboration.
How do you see it promoted? How do you see it, I like to say publicized, but how do you do that? If your people are in silos, what do you suggest?
Well, I think there's a couple things. Partly it circles back to celebrating your sense of purpose and making sure people understand that no, regardless of what job you do here, regardless of what team or department you work for, there is just one overarching purpose, and we are all working towards that same goal. So partly it's about making sure you're celebrating and creating a unified sense of purpose, a unified vision, a unified set of goals, and remind people that no, it is your job to help these people in this other department, and it is their job to help you, right? And just remind people of those connections. It speaks to values. So this has to be a values conversation where you talk about, hey, one of our values is open and honest communication and collaboration between all departments, between all teams. And we are going to assess you on that. We're going to assess you on how much you reach out to other teams and other departments and how willing you are to work across departments.
Yeah. Well, you know where I'm going to go with it, right?
I think I did.
One word, and there's a way to break down silos, and that is if we're focused on the customer, we don't start thinking about silos. If we know how what we do contributes to the experience of the customer, how we all have to work together. If one of the cogs is broken in the wheel, then the experience breaks down. So we have no choice but to work together because it's 100% customer-centric mindset.
Totally. Which ties back to that idea of just having one overarching central purpose. The only reason we exist is to provide rocking customer experience, and you all have a role in doing that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Some folks may remember, those of you who've been around a long time, a couple of years ago, we had the brilliant CEO, Mike Easton from Argus Industries on. And he talks about their culture being very much focused on this idea of having a one team culture. So this idea that, people work in different departments, but we drill it through their heads. There's only one team here in our company, and that's our entire company, Argus. And he has this wonderful mantra about the need to hire diverse brains, because that fuels innovation, that fuels creativity. We want diverse perspectives, but everybody has to be of one heart. So he has this, I forget the actual phrasing, it's more eloquent than what I'm going to say, but the idea, the concept is, many brains, but one heart. Everybody focused on the same purpose and the same values.
I think that was a message 2 weeks ago too, from the CEO of Trailer Bridge, whatever, whatever. I've forgotten the name of the organization. Anyway, we are coming to an end.
We are. Look at that.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
Well, I'm missing the smartassery of Richard.
I know. We're too serious.
I know. What?
So, tell a joke.
Tell a joke. Hey, tomorrow is, we should let them know, as professional speakers, tomorrow is official Professional Speaker Day. So
I never knew that.
Yes, well, you and I should drop our mailing addresses in the chat box, I think, right now, because people might want to send us gifts. I don't know.
You still have your name as Richard Haddon on your screen.
Oh, I do. Oh, you told me to change it. I totally forgot. Yeah, I'm not Richard Haddon.
So for anybody new, this is not Richard Haddon.
I am not Richard.
But he did, because Richard's not here, he has to sign in as.
So my final thought is just this: if culture matters as much as we think it does, and it does, it's your number one competitive advantage. It affects absolutely every aspect of your business. Then you need to take it seriously, which means you need to measure it. So consider all the different ways, and there's not going to be just one approach. It has to be a multi-pronged approach to keeping your pulse on your culture and measuring it.
I think it can also be everybody listening can use it to their advantage. I would imagine that no one's gone to senior management in your organization and said, we need to measure culture, and here are some ways.
Yeah.
And seriously, and I think when senior management understands that they just think they're measuring it, you know, with the once a year employee engagement survey, or whatever, once a year they survey their customers with an NPS score. I think it's got to be an ongoing process. Totally. And there are lots of ways, and come up with your own criteria of how we're going to measure culture in our organization.
What is your definition of culture success?
Yes, exactly.
And on that note, we will see you when, Jeff?
Well, wait. When is the next? When is the next one? The next one.
That's what I'm saying. Well, do the math. It is August 20th, I believe.
Yeah, good, because I wrote it down somewhere.
It's a Wednesday. Wednesday, surprisingly, a Wednesday. Yes. Wednesday, August 20th. Thank you, everyone, as always, for joining us. Thank you for your comments and enthusiasm in the chat box.
When do we see everybody?
Every other Wednesday. Every other Wednesday. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Michael.
Bye, Jeff. Congratulations on your new book.
Thank you.